I thought we were killing ourselves for Africa. I thought we were killing ourselves for Africa, man. Let me start with this very clearly. I don't think African teams are struggling because of a lack of talent. I see the talent pool in the African teams. They can now compete with at least the B-tier teams. They're with the Netherlands, with the Portugals. I'm telling you, you can compete with them. Senegal have a good enough team to compete with these teams. That is a lazy argument. Anyone who says it, I don't really buy it. It's a very lazy argument. The squads that they have, there are players in the Premier League, there are players in Ligue 1, Serie A, Bundesliga, Champions League level players, top athletes, strong defenders, fast wingers, powerful midfielders, everything. I just saw Basimana Toure go to Newcastle for 50 million just the other day. So this is no longer the case of African teams turning up to the World Cup and being completely outmatched physically or technically. They're not like Panama or a team that has to just defend in a 5-back and just try and not concede goals. The gap is actually not that simple anymore. The frustrating thing is actually the opposite. A lot of these teams are close enough that they can actually compete. Senegal were 2-0 up. Congo were 1-0 up. Ivory Coast against Norway, I can't believe what I just saw. I can't believe that game. They can cause problems, they can press, they can run, they can make games uncomfortable, all within the 90 minutes. They can defend for long spells, they can create moments. But when the tournament gets to knockout football, the margins become so brutal. And this right here is where the issue actually shows up. It is not talent, it is turning that talent into control. Because having good players gets you into the games, it gets you into the round of 32. But controlling the rhythm, managing momentum, finishing chances, defending set pieces, avoiding cheap mistakes, that penalty, oh my God, at least go to penalties and lose there. Please, Senegal, man, that is the most disappointing game I've ever seen. That is what wins knockout games, and too many African teams are losing on the small. Opposite, I think the talent is almost always there. It is so obvious that these players are all talented. The athletic level is so there. The belief is there. They want to do good. The next step is becoming calmer, cleaner and more ruthless in the moments that decide games. If you're 2-0 up, lock the game off. Time waste. African football does not lack talent. Yandhi Diomande is transferred for 100 million. This is not a continent that lacks talent. There is no talent lack in Africa. But the game management part of it, even Congo, going 1-1 to England in the late stages is fine. But they should have at least taken it to extra time. Then you could be more proud of the performance. I hate the sympathy arc that we're giving teams saying, well done for competing. Please, get to the next stage. I believe in you so much, Africa. One thing I've noticed is how often these games become too chaotic. And honestly, chaos is not always bad. A lot of African teams are dangerous because of chaos. The speed, the duels, the power, the transition, the crowd, energy, all of this stuff, all proper African football, the emotion, that can make you horrible to play against. But the problem is when chaos becomes the only mode that you can play in. For example, you see games where an African team starts well, Congo go 1-0 up, maybe score an early goal, win a few duels, get the crowd going, and suddenly the whole match becomes emotional. The teams need to learn control. They need to learn, okay, let's just keep possession for 5 minutes. Let's just slow the game down. Let's check the temperature of the game. If you just had a big chance, sometimes the next thing is you don't need another big chance. You don't need another big attack. Sometimes you recycle the football. Sometimes the next thing you need is just a bit of calm football. And you see it so much in defensive moments. Oh my word, the defensive moments are probably the whole point of this whole video. A team defends brilliantly for 20 minutes. Only Ghana have actually pulled this off. A team defends brilliantly for 20 minutes, block shots, wins headers, goalkeeper is amazing, survive pressure. Then instead of clearing the danger properly or winning a cheap foul, someone panics and gives away a stupid free kick or something near the box, or a midfielder just tries to dribble in a horrible zone, or a defender steps out too aggressively, and that just leaves so much space behind. That is the difference at this level. The DR Congo game, for example, against England, that is a good example of what I'm talking about. Congo made the game uncomfortable. They had power, energy, directness, and they rattled England early. And honestly, you're saying, oh, well done. I'm so proud of you, Congo. That's the best you can do. No, go ahead and win the game. Go ahead. Why did Whistle not go 2-0 up? Then once the game becomes emotional, England have the players to survive it. England have Harry Kane. He only needs a few moments. Bellingham only needs one arriving run where he's going to head it. Okay, I guess he needed 3. He kind of missed a couple of chances. But Gordon, off the bench, imagine having that type of quality off the bench. So if you're going to make the game open, a team with better finishers, you're almost helping them. You're aiding them into becoming a better team than you. On the complete flip side of this, Morocco in 2022, they were emotional, they were physical, aggressive, yes. But they were not just chaos. They had structure, they protected the middle, they defended the box. Amrabat was brilliant that whole tournament. They knew when to suffer. That is why they went deep. I think they went to the semi-finals, actually. That showed that African teams can go far. Like, I believe in Africa so much. But it takes more than just intensity. It takes discipline. inside the intensity. That is the step that I'm talking about. African teams can compete in the fight, obviously. They're strong, they can compete in running, they can compete in duels. But to go deep in tournaments, to actually compete with these big European and South American nations, you have to control the rhythm of the game too. See Paraguay against Germany, they actually took them to penalties. That is my biggest point. DR Congo should have taken England to penalties. I have no clue why I saw posts like, well done, you won our hearts. You should have taken them to penalties. Paraguay took them to penalties because knockout football is not just about creating madness. It is about knowing when to create madness and when to kill the game. The other big problem is the lack of Osimhen in every single team. Why the hell are Nigeria at home? As well, oh my God, African football, you just frustrate me so much. Why are Nigeria at home? I have no clue. This is probably the most painful one of the lot because a lot of African teams do actually get into good positions. You get the ball forward and then you just have Nicholas Jackson or that Bonnie guy for Ivory Coast or whoever it is, Andre Ayew, Jordan Ayew still smoking up the Ghana team, man. It's not like they spend the whole game trapped inside their own box with no attacking threat. They can still break. Amazing counterattacks by the Ivory Coast. Great carry off the balls on the wings. Honestly, Christ Olai, Nicolas Pepe, Ahmad, Yan Diomande, all of these guys, they can isolate fullbacks, they can get runners into the box. But when it gets to the final action, oh my word, that's where the final thing actually dies so much. Yan Diomande can't shoot, but he's a £100 million player because he can dribble. Please, African football, learn how to shoot as well. You will see a winger in a most promising position on the whole pitch of the whole game. He beats his man. He gets to the cross position and then the cross just hits the first defender. And you don't get 100 chances of these. Just quality, or a team has a 3v3 transition. The pass is delayed by 1 second and suddenly the chance is just gone. And it's an easy 1-0 type goal. Or a striker gets one big chance and snatches at it. Yohan Wissa, I am looking at you. And then he doesn't get another one and he just snatches at it. Or the right decision is a cutback, but the player shoots from just a terrible angle. These are small things, but in knockout football, they are just everything. This is where the difference between dangerous and ruthless matters. A team can look dangerous without actually being clinical. That is the Brighton special. You're just going to become mid-table. You're never going to become elite. You just play some nice football, but nothing actually ever happens. You can have pace, you can have power, and exciting forward, but if the final pass is rushed or the finish is weak, the opponent survives, and you don't have that knockout power. And it gets elite teams. Once they survive your best spell, the game can flip. Ask the Congolese. Against England, it is a great example. Congo made England uncomfortable early. They had moments where England looked vulnerable in the channels, but England have Harry Kane, and that is the difference. Kane doesn't need the game to be perfect. He just needs the moment. A lot of African teams have good forwards, but not always that cold, reliable tournament finisher. Even Osimhen is not that guy, by the way. I have seen him fluctuate so much. A guy who turns these pressures into goals, and it is not just strikers too, it is creators too. Sometimes African teams have runners. Maybe the stereotypes are true. They have runners, they have ball carriers and powerful wide players, but they don't always have that elite final pass player who can actually slow down near the box and pick the killer option. Honestly, Ahmad is that for the Ivory Coast, to be fair. But the best teams have someone who can pause, disguise a pass, slip someone in, or choose the right tempo. Without that, attacks should become too direct. Honestly, you don't want just one way of playing, which is direct, and it becomes predictable after a while. You see the pattern a lot. Win the ball, sprint forward as fast as you can, force the attack, lose it, then sprint back. That can scare teams, obviously, but to win World Cup knockout games, you need more than just scare factor. You need clean execution. You need knockout power. And that is why the final third is so brutal. You can compete physically, of course. You can defend well. You can get a 0-0 like Ghana did against England. You can have the crowd believing. But if you waste your two big chances, you're not having that Mourinho-esque moment against Inter Milan for Barcelona or whatever, every single smash and grab. You're not getting that if you waste your big chances because the other team has an elite finisher and you give it 5 chances. That could be the whole game. At this level, creating danger is not enough. You have to finish the moment. The next thing is game management. And this is where knockout football becomes so cruel because it happens in the Champions League too. Sometimes African teams do 80% of the hard work. They compete physically. They defend well for long spells. They keep a clean sheet until the 80th minute, whatever. They make better teams uncomfortable. They get the crowd into the game. Suddenly, everyone's a bit nervous all around the stadium. And also create 1 or 2 dangerous moments throughout the game, whatever. But then the cheap detail just ruins everything. It could be from a stupid foul, 25 yards from goal, where the opponent has just nowhere to go. It can be a corner where nobody knows who's marking who. It can be a back post runner just left at the back post. It could be a midfielder losing the ball in the one zone where you absolutely cannot lose it. I'm looking at that South African guy in that first game against Mexico. It could be a defender stepping out so aggressively and opening the channel. I'm looking at Koulibaly. It could be a yellow from frustration because the game is becoming emotional and suddenly you can't tackle the fullback and he's getting smoked. Honestly, I haven't seen no red cards at least. That's an improvement. And at World Cup level, these details are not small. These details are basically the whole game. The World Cup is actually just down to small details. The best teams are boring. Don't see this France hype. Obviously, they're doing insane, but France 2018, extremely boring. If you are under pressure, clear the ball up the pitch. If you are winning, slow the tempo down. If the crowd is loud, keep possession and kill the noise. If they are tired, they don't start making heroic decisions every 5 seconds. Sometimes you just win a foul, you continue. You play Matuidi left wing. Some African teams still play like there's so many moments, like everything has to be solved immediately. They defend a wave of pressure, then instead of calming the game down, they force the first pass. Suddenly, you're just looking like a team that has 20% possession. They win the ball, then instead of taking care of it, they sprint straight into another transition. It is not all about transitions. You are not Newcastle on steroids, man. It is extremely hot in USA as well. That is how you invite pressure back onto yourself. And set pieces are a massive part of this. In knockout football, you can be tactically good for 89 minutes, honestly, and you can still lose just because of one corner. You can have the better athletes and still concede if the marking is loose. You can have tall defenders, you can have bloody 6-foot Senegalese guys, and still concede if the second ball is not cleared out the box. It is not just height, it is organisation, concentration, timing, blockers, runners, first contact, second contact. That is why Morocco in 2022 is an important reference for African football. They actually done me proud. They were not just running around with passion. I saw Unahi playing beautiful football in the middle of the pitch. They defended the box with discipline. They protected central areas. Ayub Buadi this tournament. Oh my God, man. I've been ranting for so long. They knew how to suffer. They made games ugly in a controlled way. That is a skill. So for African teams, the next step is not just producing more talented players. Obviously, you're always going to produce talented players, and you can rob some guys of France and England. The talent is already here. The next step is becoming more ruthless with the boring details, because the boring details decide knockout games. The best tournaments are not always exciting. I have no clue who said, okay, AFCON is an incredible tournament. But sometimes you just have to be ruthless with details. The final point is the bigger picture. The players are there, but the structure around the players has to improve. These coaches, man, I'm seeing, what's his name, Papa Gay say he's retiring from the team until the coach is going. A lot of African teams already have players in top leagues. They already have defenders who can compete physically, just naturally. They already have wingers who can hurt teams. They have midfielders who can run, Kessié, Sangare, all these guys press, tackle, carry the ball. But international football is not just about collecting talented individuals. It is about giving those players repeatable patterns. What is the automatic pass when the winger is doubled? Can we get a back pass to the left back and he whips in the cross or something like that? Who calms the game down after a big chance happens? Who protects the fullbacks when someone goes forward? Who is responsible for second balls? What is the plan when the opponent starts treating your weak side as like just nonsense? That is structure, that is coaching, and that is where some African teams still look like they are relying too much on moments and just straight a winger beating someone. Yandi Amande take on 5 people, a striker doing some magic, win a duel, whatever. A midfielder carrying through pressure. Christ, like, great performance, but I feel like he actually had to do so much. These moments are so important because you cannot build a deep World Cup run only on moments. Morocco, again, in 2022 is the best modern day example, and they might do it all over again. Let's see how they do against France. Oh, honestly, they're going to be Canada. Let's see how they do against France in the quarterfinals. They played like a team with an actual plan. They didn't look like a team hoping for just some random chaos. That is the next step for more African teams. Not to lose your identity, not to become boring European copies. Stick with your identity, but to add more calmness, more detail, more set-piece work especially, man. That actually matters so much to me. You have so much size and athleticism. Win some headers, please. More midfield control. Someone needs in the continent to develop another Iwobi for Nigeria. You need a Modric in that continent. More decision-making under pressure because the gap is not huge anymore. That's what makes it so frustrating. The teams are not getting battered because they are miles behind. They are losing because of the last 5%. One bad foul, one missed chance, one just chaotic spell. Suddenly you're getting 2 goals against you like Belgium did against Senegal. One set piece, one poor final pass, one moment where the game needs to be calm and you give it emotion. So when people say African teams are failing, I think we have to be specific. It is not a talent failure. It is a straight up control failure. It is a detail failure. It is a game management failure. And those things can improve. Honestly, the AFCON has improved so much. Over the last 10 years, I've been watching it, yeah. This last edition, it actually looked top. The stadium's top. Everything. The football there was top. That is the positive part because the players are good enough to compete. But to go deeper, African teams have to become more ruthless with the boring pass of football. I know it's so boring. You don't want to pass it around. You want Kessié and Sangare to run up the pitch. But African teams are not miles away. The talent is real. The physical level is real. The belief it be with them is so real. But at World Cup level, talent gets you close. I want to see an African team in a World Cup final within the next 4 editions. Honestly, I don't know why we're looking at it so long. That's 16 years. Control, Finishing, please learn how to finish your chances. Set pieces and game management will take you so much further. African football, I believe in you so much. Like, comment, and subscribe.